Welcome back, aliens. My name is Davin Reddy. And finally, the Java project is here. That's right. I know you are waiting for this from a long time. So basically, after watching Core Java, after watching Spring Framework, there was one question, right? What next? How do we build a project? And that's where I have a small project for you. So basically, we'll do this project together using Spring Boot, and we are going to use a database as well for data storage, right? And for this project, we are going to use MongoDB. Now, why Spring Boot? Why MongoDB? We'll discuss that a bit later. And also we need a front end, right? And for front end, we are going to use React. Now, basically in this project, we are not going to build React application. Let's say we already have the UI ready. Now we have to work on the backend part. So the backend part will be done with the help of Spring Boot, and the database will be MongoDB. Even before looking at the project, there is one particular question in your mind, and that is it a good time to watch this video? Maybe you don't know Spring Boot. Maybe you don't know MongoDB. How will you understand this project? So I am making this video considering two situations. The first one is, what if you know Spring Boot and MongoDB, the basics? You are at the right place. It's because you understand how will you use your knowledge of Spring Boot and build an application. And also, if you know MongoDB basics, you will know how to use the MongoDB cloud, which is Atlas. Now, what if you don't know these technologies? And that's the beauty. Now, I'm making sure that when I am explaining you the concepts, at least you will understand the flow of a project. You will understand why I'm doing certain things and why exactly that line of code. But yeah, if you want to do it by yourself after watching the videos, that's where you will get stuck. But of course, there's different way of learning stuff. Sometimes you have to learn from the basics, and sometimes you have to come from top to bottom. Okay, this is what you can do in the project, and now let me learn the basics. So it doesn't matter at what stage you are, you can enjoy these sessions. Now let me talk about the project which we are going to build. So the project is actually very simple. This is a project. Basically, we are building a platform for someone to get a job, and what if someone want to hire someone? So basically this portal or this website is good for both the employer and for the job seeker. Let's say you're a job seeker and you are looking for a job. I know this is a very basic UI, but again, as I mentioned, right, the idea of this video is not to understand the UI part. The main thing is the backend. So I wanted some UI, so we have it here. And you will find this entire project, the UI, the backend, in the description. So you will get a GitHub link, and you can access the project and you can run on your machine. Okay, so you don't have to type everything by yourself. Don't worry. Okay, so let me click on this get job now. So basically I'm looking for a job, and these are all the job description which I have. So these people are looking for candidates who know. So let's say if I talk about the first one, they're looking for developer, and basically they're looking for software engineer. Okay, I've just typed the description the way I want it. It doesn't matter. You know, the grammar may not be perfect. The technology might not match. We're just here to learn, right? So let's go with that. So we got some description looking for software engineer who can work with Spring Boot and MongoDB and React. Okay, you are watching the right project then. The experience required is 1 year. It should be a year, but then that's fine. These are the skill set required in terms of technology. Then we have the same profile. Let's say if you go scroll down, we also have junior data scientist, spelling mistake here, but you can ignore. So data scientist who has end-to-end project experience. That's great. 12 years. I'm not even sure if data science is that old, but anyway, it's my data. I can do whatever I want with that. Okay, so skill set required, Python, NumPy, and those stuff. Okay, so this looks cool, right? And also we have a requirement for editor who knows Final Cut Pro and who can use my Mac Studio. The actual editor is not using it, so I'm looking for someone else. Okay, doesn't matter. So let's say these are the profiles we have here. And now let's say if I have a lot of job requirements, let's say 1,000 or 10,000, how do I search for my specific requirement? Of course, you can use a search box here. So in the search box, of course, you can search for a particular profile. Let's say I want to search for developer. So I can type developer here, okay? And it should give me the results. So it is giving me all the results of developers. You can see developer, 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 developer here. But what if I'm not sure what profile I need, but I'm sure that I know something. Example, let's say I know threads. So I can simply type I know threads, and you can see it will find a profile where the skill set is threads. Okay, so basically we are also able to search. And that's exciting, right? Because you're implementing a search feature. And trust me, if you do it by yourself using a Java code or any programming language, it is very time consuming. And we have to write a lot of lines of code. So we'll understand how do we do this using the MongoDB Atlas. So here, let's say if I want to search for, maybe I'm looking for a job only in Mumbai. So I can type Mumbai, you can say it will give you the jobs which in the description where Mumbai is mentioned. So basically for sure, when you search for something, we are not just searching in a profile. So let's say this is a profile here, this is a description, this is the number of years of experience required, and these are the technologies you should know. So basically, we are not just searching in the profile, we are also searching for the description and the technology. Okay, maybe it's like a more of a Google search which we are trying to build. It will be quite awesome, right? And also, what if you want to hire someone? Maybe if we want to post a new job. So let's say in my office I need a requirement of a blockchain developer. So I can click on hire talent, and let's say job profile, I will say blockchain developer, and number of experience required is 2, let's say. Description, person should be familiar with Ethereum, developer who knows how to make dApps. That's it. And then the requirement is, let's say the person should know JavaScript. Anyway, we don't have a option of Solidity here, but again, I wanted to keep it light, so we got JavaScript there. You can change the UI the way you want. It's all about the submission which you do for the server. So when I click on submit, and if I search for, let's say, blockchain developer now, is it there? It should be. Okay, let me refresh. So you can see if I go back to this page, if I go back to get job now, we have a requirement for blockchain developer. Cool, right? And if I search for dApp, okay, you can see we got the developer here. Okay, so this is what we want to build. Now for this, of course, the React app is ready. So I will show you the code a bit, but will not be writing the React code by yourself. But we will be requiring a Spring Boot. So we are going to build this with Spring Boot, and we are going to use MongoDB in the backend. So let's get started. So we'll minimize this screen. I don't want this. And in fact, I wanted to show you the VS Code. So this is basically the React project which we have. So you can see we have multiple files here. This is for the form. This is for the feeds, what you see, all the developers, all the job posting. And you can see the request is getting sent to the server. Again, if you don't want to use React in the front end, you can use normal UI as well. Or even if you don't want to touch the UI part, I'm not a big fan of UI, by the way, we can use the APIs calling. Maybe you can use Postman to test these APIs, or we can use Swagger. Okay, so we'll use all those things in this project. I know it's quite exciting. So let's get started. Okay, so what we'll do is, first of all, let's create a project from scratch. Now, what are the technologies we are going to use here? So we are going to use IntelliJ for Java. We are going to use the database, which is MongoDB. Now, why I'm choosing MongoDB here? Why not other database? See, the thing is, there's a huge debate between SQL and NoSQL databases, which are good. I have made a video as well before this, so you can find the link in description, which talks about what is NoSQL. So basically, just to give you an idea, there are different types of databases available. You can categorize them as SQL and non-SQL. In SQL, we create tables, right? So we have a database. In database, we have tables. So in NoSQL, basically, we don't maintain the structure. Now, why it is important is because when SQL got famous, at that point, it was around 1970s. At that point, the memory was very costly. So we have to make sure that we use minimum storage and we can store maximum data. And that's why the SQL type of table makes sense. Now, if you talk about the current world, we have so much of data which is unstructured. You can't actually create the columns based on that. So what if your table is created and now you want to add a new column? Trust me, it's a big headache in SQL. That's one. So basically, we don't want to use SQL here. The second one is you want to scale your application. You want to have replicas of your database. It is very difficult to do it in SQL. Of course, you can have replicas, but then it's very difficult to sync it. So NoSQL database excel in that. And we can implement that with the help of MongoDB. So MongoDB is a NoSQL database where you don't have tables. What you have is documents. So if you want to relate, it's very easy. Database is there on both the side. In SQL, we use tables, right? Which has data. Here we have collections. So we can have tables related to collections. In SQL, you store your data in the row format, right? So if you want to represent a particular entity, let's say I want to store my information, my name, my age, my phone number, my email ID, that becomes one row. Now that in NoSQL becomes a document. Now the way we can have multiple rows in SQL, we can have multiple documents, which is a part of a collection. That makes sense, right? So basically whatever data you're storing, in fact, the data which you have here, this is a profile, this is a description, this is the experience, and this is a technology you know. So this becomes one document. And if you have multiple data, that multiple documents. Okay, and we don't have to install any software for MongoDB because we are going to use the cloud service. And trust me, this skill sets which we are going to do in today's session is very important. Okay, so I already have a IntelliJ on my machine, which is IntelliJ community version. We are going to use that. But then we want to create a Spring project, right? And since we have a community version, I'm not paying for it. So we have to make sure that we have that. Second, we want to create a service. We want to create a MongoDB service, right? So basically what we need to do is first we need to get the account on MongoDB Atlas, okay? It's very simple. You can just click on it. And the important thing is it will not ask you for credit card information, hopefully. Let's see if that is asking for you. So I will sign up with my Google account and this should be a quick process. So click on submit. You can choose your email ID and you can click on submit. I normally prefer to have Google login everywhere so that I don't have to remember the passwords. So it says, welcome, you use your account to deploy a cloud database. Okay, that's what we are going to do. And it's still building it. Okay, so basically it is asking you some questions. You can just enter, okay, we are here to learn MongoDB. Whatever application we are building content management and then preferred language. So basically we are going to do that with Java. Now that's the beauty about MongoDB, okay, which is you can use multiple languages here. Now, since we are going to use Java, so I can click on Java here and click on finish. Now, if you're getting confused how exactly the document looks like, so if you have ever worked with JavaScript, the JavaScript object, you know how you create, that's how the document is getting stored. So basically that's a JSON format for us, but in the storage, it is getting stored as BSON, which is binary sun, right? Which is JavaScript, or we can say binary JSON to make it easy. Okay, they're still loading the page. Maybe the internet is slow on my side. And that's what it is. We got our storage. The only thing is, it will ask you what type of service you want. Okay, so if you can go for serverless, you can go for dedicated, but you have to pay for it. Now, since we are into learning stage, we can select the free one. So you can click on share and you can click on create. It will create a cluster for you. Now, of course, this is not a point where we talk about cluster. Imagine you getting these services. And the beauty is you can choose any of this cloud service. So MongoDB behind the scene will allow you to choose AWS or Google Cloud or Azure. So we are going to use AWS here. Okay, so region is Mumbai. By default, you're selecting the good things. Don't need to change anything here. The only thing I want to change here is the cluster name. I will name this cluster as TELUSKO and click on create cluster. The next thing is it will ask you for the username and password to protect your database. Right? So if you want to connect, you have to enter the username and password. So you can see we have the root. By default, I've entered this before as well. So it is taking the default values. So you can enter whatever data you want to have. I'm just typing root and root. And I will click on create user. So my user is created, quite simple, right? The next thing I want to do is I will be using this from the local environment. So I'm connecting my application, which is running on my machine, with the MongoDB Atlas. So we have to enter the IP address. I want to protect this by allowing that only my machine can use that database. So I can click on add my current IP address, click on that and click on finish and close. So by doing this, you got your database deployment. So as you can see, our database is created now. What's the next step? In fact, we got our cluster, not a database. If you can see, we don't have a database yet. So it says database deployment, but then we need to create a database. So you can see we have an option of database here. When I click on database, we already have one. Now what I will do is I will click on browse collection. So basically we don't have a database. We'll create that in this. So this is the dashboard and we can see we have an option of monitoring, but will not do all those things. Let's click on browse collection. And as I mentioned, the tables in SQL, you can map it with the collection here. So let's click on the browse collection and it's trying to retrieve the database and you can see we don't have it yet. So database is, node of database is 0. So we have a cluster ready, which is TELUSKO, and we need to create a database now. So click on add my own data. So basically you can also load some sample data set which they provide you. So if you don't want to have your own database or stuff, if you don't want to have your own data, so you can click on load sample. But since we have our own data, we can click on add my own data here and it will ask you for database name. So I will say this is for job listing and then the collection is job post. In fact, you know what I will do? I will also keep my database name as TELUSKO just to make it easy. And the collection name is job post. So click on create. Okay, so as you can see, we got our database name as TELUSKO and we got our collection name as job post. And as you can see, we have multiple options here. We'll see this aggregation search index later. So we'll have a separate video on it. And I also try to explain some of the more features, but as of now, just to keep it simple, let's say this is our data here. And as you can see, we don't have any data. It's empty. So we can click on insert document because I want to see some of the listing, some of the jobs. So I will click on insert document, and this is how you can insert. And the beauty is this data looks like a JSON format, maybe a key value pair, just to simplify that. Now, I don't want to enter the data by myself. I already have some data set ready with me. So as you can see, this is the data I already have here. So I will just copy paste this part into this. So as you can see, I have inserted data. Now how this data looks like, so you can see we have an ID here, we got description, the same thing which you were able to see on the page. We got experience, profile, and the technologies which you know. And you can see this is an array basically in Java. Now, how can you relate this with Java Pojo? So in the Pojo, we create a class, right? And we have different fields. Example, if you talk about a person will have a name, a age. Now that thing comes as a key value pair here. So you can say this is age, this is name and stuff. So I will click on insert. It will insert some 10, 11 records. And you can see how many records we have. So in total, we have 10 records. That's great. So even this is enough. In fact, sometime in real application, you'll be having a lot of data to play around. But let's say we have 10. And I want to fetch this data from my Java application. Okay. So remember, this is the thing we are building. So if I remove the entire stuff, this is what I want to fetch. So what I will do now is, so this thing is working because I already have this project ready in my IntelliJ. So if you can see, I was just doing some testing here. So the project is ready, but we are not going to use this project. So I will stop this. The moment I stop this project from this Spring Boot, so you can imagine we have two different applications running, the front end and back end. So what I will do now is if I go back to my browser, if I refresh, you can see data is not coming. You know why? Because the server is not running. Of course, you can print some message here, the server is down or something. Of course, that comes at a later part. But as of now, I'm not printing any error. You can check in the console log, it will show you the error that server is not running or something. Okay, so this is what I want to make it work. And as I mentioned before, you can also use a Swagger API. So let me show you what Swagger API looks like. Of course, we are going to build the entire stuff one by one. So let's say if I run this project and if I go back to my browser and here, I will run 8080 port and you can see the Swagger API is running with that. So if you don't want to work on a UI part, you can also use Swagger. And you can see we have a post controller here, and these are the options you have. So even if you don't want to use front end, you can use Swagger. You can get all the post. So you can see if I click on right now, execute, it will show me all the documents. Now this is coming because the server is running. Okay. Now if I stop the server, even this will not work. So if I click on execute now, so you can see we got an error. In fact, this Swagger itself will not work. So you can see that this is not working. So if I open the Swagger homepage, it's not running. So we have to make it work. Okay. Now for this, what we're going to do, we have to build the project from scratch. So basically, we have to go to one of the page, which is start.spring.io. Now basically, you can use IntelliJ Enterprise version, you can use Eclipse, you can use STS, your choice. But I'm going to use IntelliJ Community version, where you don't have an option of creating a Spring project by default. So I'm going to use start.spring.io, which is Spring Initializer. Now in this, we are creating a Maven project. So basically, imagine you're creating a project and you need certain modules, you need certain project structure. So you can click on Maven project here. And we are going to use Java language. The next thing is you have to specify the version, which is 2.7.4. The only thing is, if you want to use Swagger, this version does not work properly. So I will change the version once the project is created. But if you don't want to use Swagger, this perfectly works. The next thing you have to mention is the group. So I will say this is com.telusco. And the artifact is job listing. Okay, that's the project. And we can keep it as it is. This is the package name that works for me. And then we got the jar file. So we have to create a jar file here. So once you deploy the application, when you create a package, the packaging will be happening as a jar, not var. And you can choose a Java version. 11 works. So we can go for 11. Now that also depends upon what setup you have in your machine. So you need to have a core Java setup, basically a JDK setup. 11, 17 works. You can use that. 19 just launched. So you can use that as well. But I'm a person who prefers stability, so I will go for 11. The next thing is you have to add dependencies. Now, what are the dependencies we need here? So basically, we are building a web project. So I will use a Spring Web. Okay. The next thing I will need here is MongoDB. So I will search for MongoDB. So basically, we want to go for Spring Data MongoDB. And the beauty is, all these things which happen with less amount of lines. And trust me, it's beautiful. So if I click on this, you don't have to write a lot of lines, and sometimes it's tricky when you have a lot of lines. So I will click on generate, and you can see we got our project here. So what I will do is I will just unzip this project. So you can see this is the project which is unzipped. Okay, so I'm making sure that that project belongs to Idea Project. So in my user account, I have this folder which is called Idea Projects. I'm encrypting that project there so that I can open that from IntelliJ. So I will open IntelliJ. Of course, when you open this, you will not see the project. So this is what you will see, and this is my demo project which I've already done. And now I will click on Open Project from here. So basically, when you open IntelliJ IDEA, of course, this is the community version, free one. So I will click on Open and navigate to the Idea projects, and in that I have a job listing. Click on Open. Okay, we have to trust, we don't have a choice, and we got the empty project. As you can see, we don't have a code here, but I just want to verify if my POM file has it. So POM file, you can see the version is this may not work with you, so I'm going back to 2.5.7. There's not much change between these two versions, and it perfectly works. So this version normally works with Swagger. And so you also do it when you are trying this. Also try with the older version. And once it is working, then try to change the version to see if that is working. Okay, now these are the dependencies which I have, right? So you can see it is downloading dependencies. So whatever jar files you need in this project will be downloaded. But till that point, we also need two more dependencies, which is for Swagger. Now, how will you get this dependency? It's very simple. You can go to one of the website called MVN repository, and you have to get this two, the Swagger UI and Swagger 2. Okay, so you can click on that, search, and you can click on the first one. The version which normally works is, you can go for 2.9.2. You can see we have a lot of use here. So I will use this particular version, copy this, go back to your code and paste. The same thing you can do for the second one with the Swagger 2. So you can see I'm searching for Swagger 2 here, the first one, and the same version. Make sure that you have the same version so that you will not get any conflicts, and paste. So you can see we got these two libraries. And if I open my external libraries, you will find all this files here. So you can see we got MongoDB, we got Spring Framework files, and there should be for Swagger as well. It will be there, don't worry, it will be there. So let's say if I minimize this now, so we got Swagger. In case it's always good to refresh your Maven dependencies, you can also click on this Maven and click refresh. It will make sure that you have all the dependencies required. Anyway, otherwise it will give you error here if it is not working. You can see we have all the jar files. And now it's time to write our code. The first thing you will do is, if you go to your main, see, ultimately we have to connect our application with MongoDB, right? So we have to specify where do you have your MongoDB? Do you have your MongoDB in your system, or you're trying to connect the cloud? That's first. Second, what is your database name? What is username, password? Of course, right, for connection, you have to pass the credentials as well. So what I will do is I will do all the configuration. If you can see, we have a resource folder in which you have application.properties. This is where you do the configuration. Now, what's the configuration I need here? So basically, I need spring.data.mongodb.uri. So this is the first property you have to assign, spring.data.mongodb.uri, and we have to assign a URL. Now, from where you will get the URL or URI? In that case, you will go back to our MongoDB, the cloud, and you can see we should be having an option of, if you go to overview, you can see this option of connect. Okay, so if you click on this connect here, it will ask you for what type of, from where you want to use this URI. So I want to say I want to connect to an application. So click on this. Now it will ask you which language you are using. So we are doing it with Java, and the version is this. And this, my friend, is your URI. So I will copy this and paste, done. Okay, the things we need to change, you can see it's a long string. The things you need to change here is, you can see this is your cluster name, and this is the URI, but password is not mentioned here. So you can enter the password manually. So the password for my machine is root. So username root, password is root, and that should work. The next thing I might do is, this is where I want to specify the database name as well. So basically this is the property. So spring.data.mongodb.database, and this is where you have to mention your database name. And I guess database name was TELUSKO itself. So we'll skip it, TELUSKO. I can just verify once again. I can go back to the collections part here, and you can see we have a database which is TELUSKO. So use the same name. So database name is TELUSKO. Even my cluster name is TELUSKO. You can have a different. So make sure that you enter your database name here. Okay, that's it. This is the property you have to mention. And now I can simply close this. I don't even need the POM file. Close this. Okay, now what next? Now we have to write a code to make it work. So what I can do is I can go back to my Java, and you can see we already have an application here. Now the thing is, I want to enable the Swagger API, and as of now, we don't have a Swagger API enabled. If you don't want to use Swagger, you can skip the entire step. And since we are not here to learn about Swagger and stuff, so just to give you an idea, it helps you to request to your web service. Okay. Now, if you don't want to use Swagger, you can skip this step. So if you can see, I have just copy pasted, and this is the only thing we are copy pasting, okay, because we are not here to learn about Swagger. So the only thing is you have to do is for the application, you have to enable the Swagger too, and we have to import the package for this. We have to make a bean because this is how this Swagger will be loaded. As I mentioned before, this is an optional step for the project. So I'm not explaining this stuff because I just wanted to show you how do you build an application. Let me import the packages. Okay, and the good thing is I will make sure that this project is available in your in the link in the description as a GitHub link. Okay, so this is done. We have done with our main. Okay, now this is only for Swagger, and we are not going to use this file anymore. So we are just enabled this Swagger. Okay, but then now I want to send a request to the server, right? Now how do we do that? So in Spring Framework, basically we use something called Spring MVC, which is Model View Controller. And here we have to first create a controller, and you can see we don't have a controller here. So what I will do is I will create a new class, and this is a class, basically the name would be, let's say, post controller, because now we are going to work with the post, right? Job post. So instead of saying job post every time, I will say post controller, and that's our controller here. Now, how do you make this as a controller? It's very simple. You make this controller with the help of REST controller. Okay. And in this, you will write your methods. So for every request you want to send, let's say I want to fetch all the post. So I can use the URL, which is localhost:8080. That's the port number where the server will be running. And I can say /all post. It will give me all the post. What if I want to submit a new request? So I can say /post with the post method. So the first one was get method. The second will be post method. And what if I want to search based on a term? And for that, we can use again a get to fetch. But in this particular video, we are going to focus only on how do you get all the records. Okay, that's it. Or maybe I can also do it for the submit part. But the first thing I want to do is I want to enable this Swagger, right? So in that case, what I can do is I can create a method, and this is only for Swaggers. I can say redirect. So every time someone send a request for the home page, it should redirect to the Swagger page. And to do that, we have to import HTTP servlet response. Okay, so basically what I want to do is every time someone requests for the home page, okay, we have to do the mapping for that as well, which is request mapping. So when someone requests for the home page, we have to mention that, hey, call the Swagger API, okay? And to do that, what I will do is I will say response.redirect. And in bracket, I can mention swagger.ui.html, and it is giving me some error. Okay, it's asking me to add the exception. So I will say throws IO exception. And that's it. The Swagger UI will be ready. Let me just prove you that. Now to prove that, I will run this application first. I will right click the main application and say run. Okay, it will take some time. I hope it will work without any error. Okay, you can see it is working. And how do I verify that? So I can just go back to the browser and okay, Swagger API is not working. Refresh, enter. And you can see we got our Swagger API. It's simple. And this is our controller name. If I click on this controller, you get all these options by default. But I don't want these options. So in that case, what I can do is I can just write API ignore. Oh, API ignore. Okay, that's it. So when I say API ignore and the server, go back here, and now when you refresh, so you can see it has removed all the predefined requests. We want to define our request by ourselves. So I can say no operation defined in the specs. Okay, that's good. So what I can do is now I can define the request. Now what request I want to send? So basically here, I want to have an option of fetching all the post. Now for that, I can create a mapping. So basically I want to, okay, what mapping we want to do? We want to map it for all the posts. So I can say public, which will return the list of posts. Now what is this post? Hold on. So for the document, I also want a POJO, right? Which will map the document and POJO. Okay, we don't have a POJO here. And one more thing, the post controller should be a part of a controller, right? So let me just move that. So I will say new package, and I will make this as a controller, and let me just move this. I want to create one more class here. In fact, one more package first. Package, and this is where I will keep my models. And in this model, I want to create a POJO. Now what POJO? a mapping class which will map my Java class with the document. So I want to name this as post itself, the job posting, okay, not the post method of HTTP, the job posting. And here I want to have some variables. Now, what are the variables I need? So if you compare with the database, if I go back here, so you can see we have a description here. Let me just increase the font size a bit. It's not visible. So you can see we have a description, we have experience, we have profile, and we have technology, which is an array. The same thing you'll be doing here. Okay, so what are the things we need in the post? So first of all, we need a profile, right? So if you remember the database, we had profile, description, technologies, and experience. So let's put that. So we got first thing we are going to get is the profile. Then we are going to get the description. Then we'll need the experience and the technology. So we can say text. That makes sense. Okay, but then this text will be an array, and that's done. Of course, you can keep this bracket here as well. That works. And for this, I need getters and setters. So I will right click. I will say generate. I want a getter setter for all the fields, and click on OK. And with this, I also need a constructor. Generate a constructor with. In fact, I want a blank constructor without any field. And we also need a toString in case if I want to print. That's it. So I will say right click, generate toString. Okay. So we got our post, right? It's so simple. Okay. So going back to the controller, we got our post now. So we can import the package. That's imported. And we have to also import the list. That's done. So if I want to fetch, what method should I have? So I can say get all posts, even that works. And name doesn't matter, right? So we can say get all posts. And now I want to do a mapping for it. So when do you call this particular method? See, of course, the home page is done. Now home page returns the Swagger page. But let's say in this Swagger, if I go back and I want to have, let's say, a URL which requests for all the posts, it should fetch the post. So in that case, I can just go back here. And for get request, I can say get mapping. And the URL which I want to have is, let's say, all post. So if we are requesting for all the posts, or maybe I can simply say posts. That works, right? So we can say posts and it should return the post. But then how do I return the list here? By default, it will return empty. That works. Now, if I want to fetch this data, what I will do now is I want to return the list. How will I get the data? So of course, I want to fetch this data from database, right? Now, if you know Core Java, JDBC and database, we have to write a lot of steps, right? But not in Spring. So we can use Spring Data. Remember, we have added one of the library for Spring Data. This one, Spring Starter Data Mongo. So basically, we can use that to fetch data. And for that, what I can do is I can create a new interface, basically, not the class interface. And we'll name this as, let's say, post repo, or we can say repository. Okay, now this is how you will fetch data. Okay, you don't have to write any methods, any implementation. I know that sounds new for some people. They're like, hey, without writing any queries, without writing anything, how can I fetch data? Let me show you the magic now. So what I can simply do is I can implement this interface, or not implement, I can extend this interface with the Mongo repository. And in this, you have to mention two things. The first thing is what type of data you want to fetch, which is of post type. So basically, this is the mapping. So whatever data, whatever document you fetch will be a type post. And the next thing is the primary key, basically. But then we don't have a key, so I can keep it string. I'm assuming that it will be string. Okay, so let's get it that way. And then that's it. We don't have to write any methods in this. You don't have to create any class which implements this. The Mongo repository will take care of all the CRUD operations. Fetching, creating, updating, and deleting. Okay, that sounds fun, right? Let me show you. So what I can simply do is once I got this repository, remember I'm not creating any class or stuff. I'm just going top here and I'm saying create the object of post repository, not the object, but not the object of the interface, but behind the scene, the Spring framework will create a class for it. It will create an object for it. You don't have to do that. And I will simply say this is a repo. And I will just map this as AutoWire. So when you say AutoWire, it simply means Spring will create an object for you and it will map it. That's it, that auto-wiring part. And you don't have to do anything else. Just come back here and say repo.find all. Can you see that we have so many methods? We have not written those methods. It's inbuilt in Mongo repository. That's it. I know you will not trust me at this point. The only way I can prove my point here is by restarting the application. And I know you might be saying there's a difference between the time here. It's just that my camera was not working properly. So I have to take a pause and do it again. And if I refresh, oh, can you see that? We got all post. And if I click on this, hopefully this will work. It's already been a lengthy video. I will click on try it out, execute. Oh, okay, we got data, but it's not printing data here. Oh, something went wrong here. So we're requesting for posts, and it is requesting for the post find all. Okay, now what is missing? Remember when we go for the post repository, we have mentioned that there's a post, right? There should be mapping, but post is not aware of that. So what we have to do is we have to say document here, and we have to mention which collections this will map to. So this will map to, okay, what's my collection name? If I go back to my thing, it is job post. So we'll just come back here and say job post. Now this should work. So if I restart the server, there's no error. And if I go back to my Swagger API, hopefully this time it will work, execute. Oh, can you see that? We got the data. This is what we wanted, right? Oh, it's working. And if you look at the code, it's so simple. We just got a controller here where we are doing the mapping. We got the post repository and nothing much here. We're not declaring any methods or stuff. And if I look at the post, this is just a POJO. So fetching is working. That's awesome. How about posting the data? What if I want to submit data? Maybe I want, so apart from this all post, I also want to have post, which will submit data, a post method. Let's try. This should be simple. So I can simply create another method here for posting data. What if I want to get my own records? So I can create a method which will return the post itself. So whatever post you are submitting, it will return that. And I will say add post. Of course, method name can be anything. And okay, the mapping, what type of mapping I'm going to do? Any guess? We are submitting data. So for submitting, we have to use post mapping. And here we have to specify the URL. Can I say URL post? See, when I say posts for get, it will fetch. Okay, so in the method we are specifying its get method. So it will fetch. In post, we are submitting data. Okay, this post and post might be confusing, but this post is basically the job post. This post is a HTTP method. But then when you submit data, we have to also accept it right here. So I can use a request body here to accept. Now see, if you don't understand all this concept, see, flow is something very easy, right? But what if you want to do it by yourself? Don't worry, I have a Spring Boot tutorial. You will find the link in description, which explains each and everything properly. This is a project video, right? So I'm just focusing more on the project part. Okay, so request body, and here I can mention the object where it will receive the data. So I want it to receive data in a post format. So whatever data you will submit from the client side will be accepted here in the post object. I know that's something which Spring is amazing at. Okay, once you got the data, I can simply say repo dot, okay, which method I have to use? For saving, I think there's a save method. Yeah, there's a save method which will accept the post object. That's it. No need to mention any query. No need to mention any code for it. We're done with this. But I guess save returns something. Okay, what I will do is save returns the object of post. So we can simply say save, which will return the post object, and we're returning it. That's it. And here, I think it should work. If I go back, we have to restart the server. So you can see we are fetching data. We are also submitting data. And if I go back, refresh, okay. Okay, so that we got post here. That's awesome. And you can see it will give you some demo data as well, so that it is already mapped, right? So I want to submit data. I can say description. Okay, description. First of all, I will set the profile. Profile I'm looking for is blockchain developer. And here description can be Ethereum developer with dApps experience in Mumbai. Or maybe I can say this time I can say Pune. Okay, experience, I need only 2 years. Blockchain developer, technology, what you should know. Let's say you should know Java. I don't know why you should know Java, but let's say Java. Then we can say Solidity, and you need to know XML. I don't know why, but let's say XML. And let's click on execute. It should work. Oh, it worked. Can you see that we got the data? But then we are getting the data on the client side, right? Let's verify from database. So if I go to database now, and let's see if that is there. Let me refresh the database. Hopefully it should be there. It should be there. It should be there. If I scroll down, can you see that? We got the blockchain developer, Ethereum developer, whatever we have written there, and the array of your skills. Awesome. It was so simple, right? So basically we were able to request data, we were able to save data. But of course, at this point, we have only worked with the Swagger part. We have not connected with the UI. We'll do that. And also there is no searching option. Okay, we have not created something for searching. We'll do that in the next video. So in the next video, we'll also try to understand how will you use MongoDB, what is the feature it provides, and then we'll explore one more application which is called MongoDB Compass. Okay, which is a UI. Basically, I'm just, everything which I want to do, I'm just going to the browser, right? And I'm accessing the cloud service. What if I want to access everything on a desktop application? Sometimes it is very easy to access a desktop application than going to the website. So we'll try to explore that as well. Okay, and yeah, so that's it from this video where we have created this project. Don't worry, we'll complete this project in the third video. Second video, we'll talk about MongoDB Compass and all those stuff so that you will get more idea how to use MongoDB, how powerful it is. And in the third video, we'll complete the search part as well. So that's it from this video. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know in the comment section. And don't worry if you don't understand some of the things. You can find the video in the description which talks about Spring Boot. You can watch that video. Okay. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you so much.